Last year, I completely failed Inktober, so I wanted to make up for it this year and really push myself to finish the challenge. But I've had a lot going on in my life, so I figured I'll just take it easy this year. Nothing too stressful, just some simple pen sketches and call it good. But alas, take it easy, I did not. Almost immediately, Murphy's Law kicked in. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically the ideology that everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So, yeah, I'm sure based on that and the title alone, you can guess where this is going. So much went so wrong for me that it's kind of unbelievable. So before I hop into my sketchbook and give you a tour of my 2023 Inktober drawings, I'm going to tell you about the actual journey I went on for this challenge. So buckle up and enjoy my October of suffering. Okay, so before I start the story, I realize some of you just might not care for it, and maybe you're just here to see my Inktober drawings and then move on with your life, and that's totally fair, so if this is you, feel free to skip to this timestamp. As for those of you that wish to stay, I'll be playing this speed paint of a Halloween drawing I did for my webcomic, just so you have something to watch while you listen to me ramble on. Now, let's get into it. It was a dark and dreary night, the night of September 31st. I was lying in bed, cat on my lap, phone in my hand, simply doom-scrolling the night away. And suddenly, I was hit with a devastating realization that it was only 1 hour away from October, and as such, it was only 1 hour away from the spookiest drawing challenge of the year. Inktober. I knew that I was going to have to put in some major work for this challenge, for I hadn't even seen the prompt list yet. So I got up and I walked over to my desk. But suddenly, I was filled with a sense of dread. My stomach dropped and my blood ran cold, because I noticed one fatal flaw in my efforts for Inktober this year. I didn't even have a sketchbook. Okay. In all seriousness, this is literally how my month started. I legitimately didn't have a sketchbook because I forgot to buy one when my old one ran out of pages. So not the best start, but it wasn't the end of the world either, because I have this nice big stack of cardstock, and I figure I'll just use that, and then I can keep the drawings in a folder or something. But naturally, it wasn't that easy, because I couldn't find it. I looked everywhere, and my cardstock was nowhere to be found. I did manage to find 4 pieces in my school folder from last semester, but 4 pieces of cardstock was not going to carry me for 31 days of Inktober. So I accepted defeat, and with a solemn look at my bank account, I ordered a new sketchbook online. It said it would be here on the 7th, so right off the bat, I was going to be an entire week behind on Inktober. So to combat this, I used the cardstock that I did have to get in some thumbnailing and do the first few prompts. Or that was my plan anyway. Predictably, it didn't work out like that. After thumbnailing, I realized that for the life of me, I couldn't find any ballpoint pens. You see, my original plan for Inktober this year was to do some simple ballpoint sketches in place of my typical alcohol marker drawings, just to alleviate some stress off my shoulders. The problem is that while I knew I had them somewhere, I didn't know where. The worst part in all of this is I actually did manage to hunt down 3 completely different ballpoint pens that were in my bag, but it was really just the world's way of rubbing salt in my wounds, because naturally, all of them, yes, all 3 pens, were dead, completely dry. But honestly, it was totally fine, because I had a genius backup plan. I can just use my watercolor Awoohoo markers because they have versatility with a fine liner and a brush nib. And they had a wide array of colorful options to keep it super visually interesting. And that's not even the best part. The best part is they don't bleed through the page. So it was honestly the perfect solution. Until it wasn't. I open up the art box where I keep them, and lo and behold, they were not there. Once again, rug ripped from underneath my feet. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I was getting pretty frustrated at this point, because somehow everything I owned was just conveniently misplaced the second I needed it. So I decided to step back and take a breather, just focus on other things for a while, and then wait for my sketchbook to arrive in the mail. But then, it didn't arrive in the mail, because apparently Murphy wasn't done with me. I checked my app the day it was supposed to get here, and for some unknown reason, the delivery date was delayed from the 7th to the 12th. Now honestly, this really bummed me out, because alongside all the BS going on in my life, I couldn't even be allowed to enjoy something as simple as participating in Inktober. It felt like the world was just giving me a huge sign to stop and give up on the challenge. But I didn't want to. I was seeing some of my friends' drawings on Discord, as well as a bunch of other artists on Instagram, and I wanted to do it too. So, in the end, I didn't give up. If anything, after allowing myself to be sad for a bit, instead of kicking me down, this delay somehow fueled my stubborn spirit. I knew that if I was going to finish Inktober this year, I was going to have to make a plan. I figured that I still wanted to do pen sketches for simplicity's sake, and because I was already a week late, so my very first mission was to acquire some ballpoint pens. Now this part, it was pretty easy, because I had to go to a framing workshop off campus. How is that correlated, you might ask? Well, you see, this framing workshop just so happened to be right next to the department store. So after my workshop was over, I walked over, picked up some pens, and I used them to knock out the first 4 days of Inktober. Easy and done. And then, by some mercy of the heavens, my sketchbook actually arrived on the 12th. So I could finally get this challenge going. Except that I couldn't. Because not only was I swamped with schoolwork at that point, but I honestly hadn't been feeling well for a while. I mentioned it briefly a while ago, but my health has been pretty bad this year because of a chronic illness I developed in January. Unfortunately, I later learned I was going through something called the Inktober slide, and it was hitting me like a truck. And for a while, it was like I was in a constant flare-up of my symptoms. Now, I don't want to get too in-depth about this, but it eventually escalated to the point that I had to make the decision to do a medical withdrawal from school. And after I dropped all my classes, I took over a week just lazing around my room, mostly lying in bed and sleeping to recover from my flare, because I honestly didn't have the energy to do much else. And I'm not looking for pity or anything here, it's pretty relevant to the story since it took so much of my time away from me. So yeah. Anyway, as you can guess, I fell super far behind on the challenge because of that. At this point, it was the 21st, and I'd only finished the first 4 prompts of Inktober. Now, any sane person in my situation would have said, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do Inktober this year. Maybe I should focus on something more important than that. But I don't really have all my nuts in order, so for some reason, I decided I'm still gonna finish this thing. Surely I could finish 27 Inktober prompts while I'm sick and in the middle of withdrawing from school, all while there are only 10 days left in the month. Yeah, maybe I'm an idiot, but I'm nothing if not persistent. Apparently. So after my week of recovery, things were still kind of hectic, but I could breathe easier again. So I took the opportunity to finally continue the challenge. Now, I was well aware of the fact that the end of the month was rapidly approaching, and it was glaringly obvious that if I was going to finish Inktober, I was going to have to put in some major effort. So over the next week, I finished thumbnailing my ideas for each prompt and got started on the remaining illustrations, and I made strides in my progress, doing a handful of prompts a day to the point where I managed to get all the way to day 22 by the end of it. Things were looking good, and I was finally feeling confident that I could manage this. But then, in one last attempt for Murphy to smite me, there was a random snowstorm, and I believe it was a rapid temperature change that left me in yet another flare. It was the last few days of October, and I was just stuck in bed. Eventually, I had slept through the deadline of Inktober entirely. So, was this it? Was I going to get all the way to the finish line and then trip before I could cross it? Was all this stress and effort for nothing? No, it wasn't. I knew that even if I finished late, I could still count it as a win. I could still do this. I just had to get to a point where I felt well enough, and then I could power through. I would reign victorious over Murphy himself and everything he sent my way. So in the second week of November, in one last push, I finished the remaining 9 Inktober drawings. And as I put down my pen, I was officially free from the shackles the Inktober gods had bestowed upon me. I had done it, and it felt amazing. I felt accomplished. I had done what I set out to do, and it made me really happy. And there you have it. That about wraps up the story. I know that this was probably all over the place, but I'm glad to share it regardless. So thank you for listening to me ramble on for probably way too long. I really hope it was at least a little entertaining to listen to. Either way, now we move on to the part I'm sure most of you are actually here for, the results. So without further ado, please enjoy my 2023 Inktober drawing tour. Okay, so I can't believe I'm saying this, but one last thing just went wrong. I can't find my phone stand, which means I can't actually record a tour. You see, I moved in with my sister last month, and I haven't been able to unpack most of my stuff, unfortunately. And I have no idea what box my stand is in. So, yeah. I'm gonna have to do this a bit differently. Instead of just recording myself flipping through my sketchbook, traditional format for sketchbook tours, I'm just gonna take pictures of my drawings and show them to you guys that way. So yeah, thumbs up. Okie dokie, let's get this tour going. So for the first prompt, we were given dream. And since it was the first prompt, I didn't want to go too hard or anything, so I just drew a cute sleeping animal. I found this adorable picture of a sleeping red panda on Pinterest, so that's what I ended up drawing. Day 2 was spiders, and I actually ended up changing my idea for this one. Originally, I was going to draw Muffet from Undertale, but then I remembered this meme right here. And 2 of my best friends, Firewolf and Xenobard, had recently designed their spider sonas, and I had recently redesigned mine. So, I'm sure you see where this is going. I drew our spider sonas in that meme format. And I was going to do each of them in different colored pens. Firewolf was going to be in red and blue, Xeno was going to be in green, I was going to be in purple, our favorite colors. But I realized the pens I had kind of clashed a bit. So I did it in black pen to play it safe, and I think regardless of it not having a color, that it turned out really cute. Day 3, we got Path. And I wasn't really confident in my idea, so I didn't really execute it that well. But to put a positive spin on things, because I wasn't really liking how it was coming out while I was drawing it, I just took it as an opportunity to mess around with some value and texture. I do like drawing clouds too, so I had a little fun with that. But really, this piece was just me messing around with texture. For day 4, we had Dodge. And I know I did a Spider-Man related drawing for day 2, but I came up with this idea way before I came up with that one, so it's totally fine. And I still had fun with it, so there. Looking back at it now, the proportions are a bit off, but I still like it, so we're good. Alrighty, day 5 is an exciting milestone because my sketchbook was finally here, and I got to use it for the very first time. Our prompt was map. So of course I had to draw Buggy the Clown from One Piece, the lover of maps himself. And as you can see, I drew him too high on the page. And you can imagine the way my heart dropped when I realized the map wouldn't fit where it was supposed to. Because of course this was right in the midst of everything going wrong for the challenge. But I really liked how the drawing was coming along, so I just kind of extended the page with a sticky note. And I'm honestly really happy that I did that because this is actually one of my favorite drawings from the entire month. And I feel like if I'd redrawn it, I wouldn't have liked the end result as much. So honestly, it all worked out in the end. On to day 6, where we got the prompt golden. Now up until this point, I was just using these cheap ballpoint pens that I bought earlier in the month. But if you look closely, and I mean like really closely, you'll realize that there isn't a golden or a yellow pen. There isn't even an orange. And in my head, I was set on drawing this in at least yellow. Luckily, I needed groceries anyway, and that gave me the perfect excuse to hop on the bus and go to the store. And I'm glad I did because I found some great markers, and they don't even bleed through the page. And I even ended up using them a ton for the rest of the month, so money well spent. Back to the drawing though, I heard golden, and my brain instantly went to everyone's favorite golden boy, Hunter from the Owl House. I decided that I'd just do a bit of a redraw of him as the golden guard from the season 2 intro. So yeah, there he is. There's not really much more to say about that one. On to day 7. Drip. Now my brain went right to candles since they get those really nice aesthetic globby drips off the side sometimes. But I didn't want to just draw a candle, so I drew it dripping onto a skull. And that's basically as deep as that one goes. So yeah. The 8th prompt was toad, and fairly predictably, I decided to draw a little toad. But I added a witch's hat for visual interest, and I don't know about you, but I love this little guy. And I can't help but think that he's a familiar, and his witch just has like a bunch of little tiny hats for him. I don't know, my brain kind of ran with it, and I think it's really cute. Day 9, we got Bounce. Now originally, I saw this picture and I was gonna draw a person and their cat jumping together, but I was feeling kinda lazy the day I drew it, so I just did the cat. And honestly, I think it's cute. A bit simple, but still cute. I like cute animals. Okay, the 10th day was Fortune, and I was really looking forward to drawing this one, but I drew it really tiny, so I couldn't get a lot of detail. And then I think I kind of ruined it last minute, because at the end, I just had these tiny dots suggesting a swirl in the crystal ball, but it was boring looking, so I went in with one of the zebra markers I got, and I realized too late that the purples don't really go together. It's like they're far enough in value, and I don't think they clash too terribly, but they also are kind of separated on the purple spectrum enough. Like one's more of a bluey purple, the other one's more of a reddy purple. I don't know, they compete a lot. I don't think it's bad. I think I'm just being a little picky with this one. The vibes are off because I noticed that the purples don't work well together, I think. So, there you have it. The next one, though, day 11, Wander. I think this is actually my favorite in the entire bunch. I don't know what it is, but I love it. I had a lot of fun just scribbling on some value, and I adore the texture that the pen brought to this piece. And I also did this fun little thing where I added a reflection from the fire, where I would like lightly scribble with a red ballpoint, and while it was still wet, I went over it with one of my jelly rolls, and it turned out exactly how I wanted it. I don't know, I love it. Like, I really thought the background was going to ruin it last minute since I was so happy with how that, like, the person came out. I thought the background was just going to come in and crush my dreams, but it didn't. I think it turned out pretty nice. And sorry if it seems like I'm tooting my own horn a bit here. I don't mean to sound arrogant or, like, overzealous, but this one made me really happy. And you gotta take your wins when they come, so that's what I'm gonna do here. Day 12, Spicy. I decided that for Spicy, I would draw a little scene where Sans and Frisk pulled a prank on Papyrus and made some, like, really spicy spaghetti for him. I don't know why, but I was just, like, imagining him spewing fire out of his mouth, Godzilla style. So that's exactly what I did. Also, I made the bowl on fire to indicate that it was cartoonishly spicy. I don't know, it's a simple scene, and I think it turned out cute. 10 out of 10. Okay, day 13 was Rise, so I decided I would just draw a cute little picture of Mikey from Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Because if you know me, you know that I've loved TMNT since I was a kiddo, and that love came with me into adulthood. I loved Rise when I watched it, and this was a nice excuse to do some fan art of my favorite turtle. Alright, another I'm not the happiest with, but I also don't mind it that much. So this was for the prompt Castle. So I decided to draw a pretty iconic moment from Howl's Moving Castle. I really like how the shading came out, and I'm really happy with my decision to just add color to Howl's jacket and nowhere else. But I'm kind of sad that I decided to use a simpler style for the faces. I feel like it doesn't really match the illustration overall, but other than that, I'm totally fine with this one. I think it turned out as well as it could. Now for day 15, Dagger. I immediately thought of a character named Dagger from the Race to the Edge series of How to Train Your Dragon. He's got a pretty fun design, and I figured I might as well just draw some fan art for this prompt. He has some darker red hair, so I used a dark maroonish colored marker to draw this. So yeah, that's that. And before I move on, and you hardcore How to Train Your Dragon fans come at me in my comments, yes, I know it's spelled dagger and not dagger, but I still wanted to draw him, so I did it anyway. So please, just don't be mad about that. Give me a pass on this one since I'm aware. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. Days 16 and 17 are the only days that I combined multiple prompts into one illustration, because the Inktober gods put angel and demon right next to each other. And seeing them together brought my brain right to good omens. So I grabbed a cute moment from the show and I redrew it. And it was a lot of fun to do this one because I got to just draw what was in front of me, and it was honestly really relaxing. But then I wanted to make it a little interesting, and last minute I kind of threw in a halo and some horns and a tail in marker, and I think it really just brought it all together. All in all, I honestly love this one. It's another one of my favorites. Day 18. I had no ideas for saddle, so I just did the obvious thing and drew a horse in a saddle. I was pretty nervous going into this one because I haven't drawn a horse since middle school, and I remembered it being really hard. But it was pretty easy this time around, so I'm pretty thankful for that. And it also made me kind of happy because it sort of showed that I'm growing more as an artist, and drawing things that I used to find very difficult and a little daunting come to me a lot easier. So it was a pretty exciting moment with such a simple sketch. Day 19 was plump, and my brain wanted me to draw a chunky cat. So I went to Pinterest and looked up Chunky Cat and found this adorable rotund little baby. I couldn't resist, so here's my drawing. It's simple, but I still love it. For Frost on day 20, I went back and forth between a few different ideas, but I ultimately decided to draw the Winter King from the Fiona and Cake series. I don't want to say much because I don't want to spoil anything for the people who haven't had a chance to watch it, but the Winter King is kind of a showman, and he's extravagant and lively, and I figured this pose fits him pretty well. And since he's blue, I drew him blue. Day 21 was chains, and my brain went right to lapis lazuli in her underwater prison. I actually really like how this one turned out. I had a lot of fun with her dress, and then some fun shading to add contrast. I don't know, it's pretty simple, but I like it. And just like the last one, since she's blue, I drew her blue. Next up was Scratchy, and I couldn't really think of much other than like a scratchy sweater, so that's what I did. While I was drawing, I realized I hadn't really used my pink ballpoint yet in this challenge, so I made the sweater pink. I did the rest black just so the sweater would kind of be the obvious focal point, but yeah, there you have it. Scratchy sweater. And following that up was Celestial. I was pretty proud of my idea for this one because this character is actually mine. I made her for a webtoon way back when, and I'm still kind of working on that webtoon, but it's a little bit of a halted thing while I work on my current comic. But anyway, she's actually the goddess of creation, and she comes from a very sci-fi kind of space-themed story, so those things together are pretty celestial to me. And then while I was drawing, I put her hand here, and I kind of came up with a fun idea to have her holding a white lily. Now, it might be kind of dumb, but I felt clever because white is the color she's strongly associated with. And the white lily is known to represent purity and rebirth. Not only is creation and rebirth kind of spot on, but one of her goals is to purify the universe of insert thing here I can't say because it's a big spoiler, so you'll have to take my word for it, but it's cool, I promise. So, yeah. Probably dumb, but I don't know, I felt clever. Anyway, day 24 was Shallow, and I went pretty straightforward with this one. My idea was a bit shallow, didn't dig too deep into my brain for it, but I still like it. I immediately thought of someone dancing around in some shallow water, so that's what I did. And I gave her a cute dress because I wanted to draw a cute flowy dress. But I did break away from the shallow idea because I'm a storyteller at heart. So while I was drawing, I came up with the idea that she was a pretty sheltered princess and that a knight she's good friends with had snuck her out after it rained, and that's how she's just playing in a puddle. Shallow puddle. So maybe I wasn't too shallow about it, but the joke was right there. I couldn't just not make the joke. So yeah. Day 25 was Dangerous, and originally I was going to draw a dangerous looking woman with a knife behind her back and shushing the viewer, but when I started drawing I realized too late the arm was holding the knife at the wrong angle, so I kind of just wung it from there and eventually ended up with this instead. I kind of love it though because she's like a dangerous temptress and it adds a lot more narrative interest than the old idea, so pretty happy with where this one ended up. Day 26 was Remove, and the first thing I thought of was those costumes where your head is on a plate and then there's shoulders on top of your shoulders, and it's supposed to make it look like you're holding your own head on a platter. But then I remembered this pumpkin girly I doodled a month beforehand, and I decided to draw her, just removing her head since she's supposed to be a Halloween creature. So this is what I came up with, and I think it turned out really cute. I'm so glad I decided to draw her. For the next prompt, day 27, we got Beast. And honestly, I could only really think of Beast Boy, so that's what I ran with. I drew him sitting there all cute, and that's really it. One thing that I wish I could go back and change is that I would draw him a little bit bigger, because for some reason I drew him really tiny on the page, just like I did with Fortune. But other than that, I think it turned out adorable. For day 28, Sparkle, I immediately thought about these handful of emojis that my sister and I joke around and text with each other. And then I was thinking about the gay hand gesture, you know the one. So I drew the main character of my webcomic doing that gesture with sparkles all around her. I really like this one too. I struggled a lot to come up with an idea for Massive, but eventually I decided to just draw Usopp from One Piece, particularly with his massive 10-ton hammer from Thriller Bark. I also decided to do this in my brown marker since he wears brown overalls, but I think it was the wrong call because I lost a lot of detail, and honestly it looks really sloppy, and you can't even really tell that it's brown. It just looks like it's in black marker, so kind of a waste, which is awesome. But either way, I'm glad I got an excuse to draw Usopp because he's one of my favorite Straw Hats. For day 30, we got the prompt Rush, and all I could think about was how I was rushing to finish the challenge. So, quite literally, I just drew myself working on Inktober. And I tacked on this sticky note I had stuck to my computer earlier on in the month as a reminder to finish the challenge. And it just felt fitting to put there, so there you have it. For the 31st and final day of Inktober, we were given the prompt Fire. I was going to draw Ace from One Piece, but since I had done some One Piece fan art just a few prompts ago, I instead opted to draw Flame Princess from Adventure Time. I was pretty straightforward with this one. I just did a fun little visual thing where I drew her as the flame on a candle. I don't know why, but I'm kind of proud of it. I think this was a good way to wrap up the month. I think it turned out pretty good. And we're done. That concludes my 2023 Inktober journey and tour. I had a lot of fun with these drawings, and I'm actually really proud of how a lot of them turned out, despite me rushing to finish literally all of them. I still can't believe that so much happened in that month, but I'm glad to be here now, finally wrapping up this video. But this has gotten much longer than I expected it to, so if you stuck around till the end, thank you so much. I definitely don't want to keep you here much longer though, so I'll go ahead and wrap this up here. I hope you liked hearing about my wild month and seeing the byproduct of it, and I also hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye!